What's going on, everybody? Give it a few minutes to see who hops on. Let's see who hops on. I'm going to do a Q&A today. It's been a little bit since I've gone live on my channel here. My apologies to that. I've been building my other channels, and I started a TikTok account for running that I post daily on to complement this. So for those that follow TikTok or have TikTok, make sure you follow me there, please. Access to Coach. It's one word. You won't miss me. I put out stuff there. I've already at 10,000 followers there, which is crazy. I'm trying to get to 5,000 on this channel too, so it would be greatly appreciated if you see this and you're an athlete or a coach or just a fan, hadn't subscribed yet. Please subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. But I want to see if there's anybody that comes on that has any questions. I want to do a cross-country training, a live Q&A, a discussion, right? We're in the fall right now. We're in cross-country season. If anybody has any marathon questions, you can bring those too, right? Marathon training is going on right now, at least for Chicago, New York, and so on and so forth. But cross-country right now, we're entering the mid-season segment of cross-country. So the weather's starting to cool off. The workouts are starting getting a little bit more intense. The races are going to get a little bit more fast and aggressive. So I want to see if anybody has any questions, especially if there are coaches who have long sprinters or middle distance runners who don't run cross, who are just training to get ready for track. Let me know too. I've got a lot of workouts to help, and I'll be putting them out on this channel shortly with slides. I recorded one of the videos today that's going to go out probably tomorrow, the next day, and have another one. So it's going to be 400, 800 meter runners, what to do in the fall, and especially right now in October. I'm going to do half mile, those as well. And I think I might do a 200, 400 as well for short sprinters. How do they prepare for the fall to get ready for the track season? It's a good time to capitalize on the fall season. You don't necessarily have to train like the distance runners do during cross country. You can do what you need to do, but there are some beneficial components to some of the workouts that cross country runners do that would serve the sprinters and the sprinting community well. So 200, 400 meter runners fall. I mean, there's a couple things I incorporate to the athletes that I coach that are, the short sprinters as well. One of them being a speed development component in two different ways. Basic speed development. So let's just say you have an easy run, then we're going to do some hill repeats. Let's say it's starting at 5 times 50 meters on a good uphill. Right? You walk down recovery, jog down recovery, whatnot. And then you complement it later on in the week with 5 times 100 on the flats. So whatever you do on the uphills, you do on the flats, but time plus 50 meters. So let's just say you did 5 times 50 on the uphill one week, and then the same, then 5 times 100 on the flat the following week. The next week, you go 5 times 100 uphill, then 5 times 150 on the flats. Then the week after, 150 uphills, 200 flats, and so on until you're at about 200 on the uphills and 300 on the flats. Right? This is a good way of building leg strength and developing the speed to complement some of the other components that you would do. Speed endurance, 200 meter reps. I talk about this a lot. For those quarter milers, you build towards 8 or 10 of these with a 2-minute recovery. Okay. And I've had some sub 50-second quarter milers in my high school that I've coached a whole bunch of them. And they get to the point where they do about 8 of them at 28 seconds each. It's something you build towards over time. That's a good workout for quarter milers. Now, if you have a quarter mile who also runs the half, let's say, and this is important too, these speed development 200s, where you're building towards maybe 8 to 10 of those with a 90-second rest now instead of a 2 minutes. Okay, and you try to get towards the 800 meter pace as quickly as possible. You work your way there all the time. You don't have to get right out the gate and do 8 or 10 of them. If you start at 4, then you go to 5 and 6, and you can spend the whole entire fall getting to the point where you can handle that top end volume, and then you can customize from there. But 90-second recovery for quarter milers who also run the half. And this is good because, how often do you run doubles in the track season? Probably pretty often. You run 800, come back on the 4x4. You run the 400, come back on the 4x8, and so on. You run the 600, the 300, rounds of the 3, rounds of this. So you need to be fit enough and strong enough to be able to not only run your races well multiple heats, but you need to be able to run double too. You need to come back, later on in the day and run well on the relays. And why do I talk about 400, 800 well? Because this is two of the most unforgiving races in the sport. This is where rigging is most prominent, right? Take your legs getting heavy is most prominent. So this is where speed endurance can be a secret weapon. For those that don't do it, I encourage them to do more of it. Okay, the stronger you are, the better off you're going to be in the 4 and the 8. Okay, so those workouts right there are good, whether you're short sprints or long sprints. Okay, the speed endurance 200s, with the 2-minute recovery are good for the short sprints. The speed endurance with the 90-second recovery are good for the longer sprints. Okay, and there's some other stuff like 400, 800. So you can incorporate a little bit of tempo, but a little bit of race speed stuff. Okay, and some of the coaches, I talk about tempo runs and threshold training a lot. Why? Because it elevates your VO2 max and puts you in a position to run multiple races well. Right? If you run a good mile, but you're way too slow in the 5K, there's probably a reason for that. You need to enhance the VO2 max by running tempo runs and threshold reps. Okay. So let's, in this situation, as always, a good warm up, drills, strides. Make sure you fire up the muscles before you do anything else. Okay. So it's 7.5 minutes at tempo pace. Then you take a 4-minute recovery. Then you do a 300-meter rep at 800-meter pace. Take a 4-minute recovery. Then a 7.5 minutes again, tempo, 4 minutes recovery. Then another 300 at 800-meter pace, 4-minute recovery. And then a 5-minute tempo, 4-minute recovery. And then a 200-meter rep as fast as you can run it. So that's 20 minutes of tempo running broken up into multiple pieces. And 800 meters of fast running broken up into 3 pieces as well. So the athletes can do some of the fast stuff, which makes it easier to transition to track from cross country, right? Morgan, how you doing, my friend? Any recommendations? You do VO2 max intervals last Friday, 100s and 800s, Saturday long run, Monday, strides, and today tempo. You race Saturday. Any recommendations for the rest of the week, Morgan? If you did a tempo plus some 200s today, and you race Saturday, today's Tuesday, on Thursday I would do a couple of 300s after your run at 3K pace, just to continue accelerating a little bit. And then you race on Saturday. So, and that's it. You don't need to do anytime you race on a Saturday, I always encourage folks to do a workout on a Tuesday. Why? Because you have multiple easy days leading into the race. But if you also race the race the week prior, I come across a lot of folks who don't run Sunday, right? And who will come back and try to want to work out Monday. I always start the week with an easy run on Monday, no matter what, and then a workout Tuesday. That way, for those that don't run on Monday, you can run Tuesday easy. Don't run on Sunday, you can run Monday easy, and then do a workout Tuesday. But that's what I would do, Morgan. I would do a couple 300s at 3K pace after, let's just say 5 of them at 3K pace after your run. VO2 max intervals 1K. How much recovery did you get between the K with the Ks and the 800s? Today. I like the 200s after the tempo too. It simulates accelerated running when you're already tired from the tempo run. And the tempo runs simulate at 5K better than anything else. Intervals Tuesday usually. I generally, I cycle it, Morgan. Okay, there's so many different, definitions of intervals and interpretations of intervals and repetitions and so on and so forth. So what I do when I work with my athletes that I'm coaching, that let's just say you have a 12-week season, right? I break it into either 4 cycles of 3 weeks each or 3 cycles of 4 weeks each, and there's a different emphasis on each cycle. So let's just say they're 4 or 4 4. Those first 4 weeks, I'm doing tempos and threshold running, right? And tempos and threshold running, alternate tempo 1 week, threshold the next week, tempo run, and threshold. If you're not racing, a second workout will be done Friday, and then the long one will be Saturday if you're not racing, okay? And 2 minutes in between the Ks and K. So generally, generally it's about almost a 1-to-1 work ratio, Morgan, for VO2 max. If you're doing thousands, you want to run them at about 5K pace, doing 800s, anywhere between 3K pace and 5K pace. But it's almost a 1-to-1 work ratio for VO2 max. So that's what I would do, Morgan. And then I would transition from that towards more hybrid training. I start incorporating a little bit of threshold or tempo into race pace, meaning a workout like, let's just say, instead of 8 times an 800, I break it up in 2 sets of 4. The first 4 at threshold pace with a 1-minute recovery. Second set at race pace, cross-country race pace with a 2-minute recovery. And now you're combining threshold or tempo and race pace stuff. So it allows you to cycle from September into October and then October into November. November is championship season, right? So that's when your most intense training has to happen. And the reason why I cycle it that way is so that you're not doing too much hard stuff too soon. So you're not racing your best races 4 to 6 weeks too early. You know, and they think this is one of the important messages I always like to communicate in cross country is there's a big difference between cross country and track. In track, you can go on and run a fast race, your first meet of the year, get a state qualifier, national qualifier, and then shut it down, right? And parlay that fitness and then rebuild and then go back and, you know, and then start racing later on. In cross country, there's no such thing as an early season qualifier. You have to qualify at the end of the season for states or nationals and so on, NXN. And so you have to be more precise with your training. That's why I cycle it every 4 weeks, because that one of those reasons. Evgeny, how are you? Or when you have to plant them with those hybrid phase cancellation. I have no idea. I'm sorry, I can't give you any insight about plants in hybrid phase for the flowers. I don't know enough about that to give you a educated answer. Sorry, man. This is about running. This is about running and training. So I wish I did. I mean, all I know is give the plant light, feed it, keep it healthy, protect it. That's the only thing I can offer in that regard. I don't have a green thumb, but so that's what I would do, Morgan. I would cycle it accordingly, if that makes sense. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hardest races, your championship season is going to be in November. So you want the hardest workouts to be November. And you don't want to have you don't want to be doing 8 weeks of that hard stuff before November. Okay. Running flowers, which are pushing your face when I don't know what that is. Running flowers? What do you mean by that, Evgeny? What do you mean? What's pushing your face when you run running? I don't understand. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Toward the end of the season, would I recommend a tempo on Tuesday and a VO2 max? It depends, and if you're racing. If in a non-race week, I mean, I would do a tempo run and a VO2 max, or race pace, or faster than race pace. I mean, I would even cycle it towards the end of the season. I would do 1 week at 5K pace, which is race pace for high school. The next week at 3K pace. The week after that at mile pace. So you're touching each system faster. Okay. But if it's an important Saturday race, I'd probably go threshold reps because it's easy to recover from. Threshold reps like 5 times a K, 5 times an 800, and so on. And put a couple of 150s at the end. That's why it's easy to recover from threshold runs because you can run them 8 to 10 seconds faster per mile than your tempo runs, but it's still less invasive on the body than VO2 max running. So that makes sense, Morgan? Sunflowers hidden, that's okay. What can I do with the hungry refrigerator? What's sorry? I have no idea. Hungry refrigerator. I don't know. I don't understand that language, Evgeny. Hungry refrigerator, which recycles your butter down. Not exactly sure what you're talking about. Sorry, dude. We're talking about running the exercise. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I wish I had more information for you there. I'm sorry that I don't, but yeah, I mean, that's essentially the recovery component, Morgan. The reason why threshold and tempo is so important because it helps you, again, it helps you get your 3K performance and your 5K performance more in line with your mile performance. But it also allows you to go over distance early in the season and even mid-season. And like I even have half milers who want to do a fast half mile race that week. I'll have them do some threshold work that Tuesday so that it doesn't take any zip out of their legs. You can do your hard stuff for a whole bunch of weeks, and then the race week comes, I lighten it back, the intensity. So I want the fast effort that week to be the race. If that makes sense. So, any other questions, gang? Morgan, again. And what year are you in, Morgan? What year of school are you in? Because that matters as well. The year of school that you're in, based on volume and so on. Definition of tempo and threshold. It's about a minute. It's approximately a minute, but it varies based on how fast you run. So a tempo is a continuously hard effort, 20 to 25 minutes. So you're a coach, Morgan. Okay. So if you're at a high school level, you want to get the tempo to 20 to 25 minutes consecutively. Now, I wouldn't go out right out the gate and expect my athletes to do that at the pace you want them to do that at. Okay. I have videos on this channel that help you actually build it towards 20, 25 minutes in pieces if you need that. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. But it's a comfortably hard running pace for that period of time. Okay, it helps build the mental toughness, helps keep the focus, it helps simulate a 5K race. And again, it's an important part of VO2 max training. Okay, that's one of the things that initially elevates the VO2 max. Now, threshold are reps with a 1 minute recovery, but they're 8 to 10 seconds faster per mile. So than a tempo run. So if your tempo run is at 5:30 per mile, arbitrarily, the threshold pace is going to be about 5:20 per mile. And if you're doing let's just say it's like 6 times an 800 or 5 times a K, 5 times 1200, 4 times a mile. And every time you do it, you could go from 800s to 1K to 1200s to miles. Because the longer you spend in the threshold zone, if you stay there at the same pace, then that's a sign of your improved fitness. Spending more time in the threshold zone. And I would not change the intensity of my workouts unless you have a race that justifies it, that backs it up. So let the races tell you whether you're ready to train faster. Does that make sense, Morgan? So tempo pace. So give me let me look something. Jorge, what's up, man? How many hills workouts should be done a week every 2 weeks? I would go 1 hill workout right now a week, George, depending on where in the season and what you're training for. But hills are definitely a good workout to be doing early season. Even short, steep hills 1 week and then longer gradual hills the following week. You can even alternate that. You can even do some short hills after a tempo run. Hills act as a form of speed development. So, but it's also it's less invasive on the body than flat sprinting is. So, Morgan, I'm going to pull up my pace calculator here. So that's what I'd be doing 1 hill workout a week right now, and I would complement it with some other things, George. I would even do a rolling run. So I try to simulate the races. So if you're running a cross-country course that's rolling, you want to do workouts over rolling hills, and you want to definitely get some hills in your workouts. 6-minute miler. Okay, let me pull this up here. So for the full mile, 6 minutes. Training. For the full mile, 709 to 710 per mile is your tempo. Your threshold is 6:59 to 7 minutes per mile, based on a 6-minute mile. But also based on a 6-minute mile, for VO2 max, you're looking to run 3K pace stuff at 6:20 pace per mile. So if you're doing 800s, you're looking to run them in 3:10 to 3:11 and so on. And 5K pace VO2 max, you're looking to run them at 6:35, 6:34, 6:35 per mile. So if you're running 1K reps, you're looking at 4:05 to 4:06 per 1K rep. So that's the equivalent of a 6-minute mile. There's a 9 to 10 seconds differential per mile for threshold and tempo. Threshold is 9 to 10 seconds faster per mile than tempo pace. Yep. But it's broken up, and again, you have 1 minute recoveries in between threshold reps. But they all serve as elevations of your VO2 max, and I would do those first before I transition into more specific VO2 max stuff. I use the VDOT sometimes too, Jorge. Yeah. I'm using the VDOT right now to calculate this. Yes. The VO2 max calculator. And I've spent some time with Jack Daniels. The VDOT calculator is very accurate. So for threshold and tempos, I would recommend the Daniels running calculator, VDOT, for that particular. But yeah, VDOT calculator, Morgan Daniels running. Go look up Daniels running calculator. It's specifically by Dr. Jack Daniels, a famous exercise physiologist and a famous running coach. And his calculator is the most accurate calculator I've seen out there. Yeah, but there are some modifications that I make to it based on some other things, speed development and stuff like that. But in terms of tempos and thresholds, I will be using that calculator. And one of the things that I did find out, because he has threshold here, he doesn't put tempo really, that threshold is about 8 to 10 seconds per mile faster than tempo pace. Yep, they have an app for it too. Yep. But the key is also when to incorporate threshold and tempo. And that's, a lot of that is personalized per athlete by coach, because, VDOT, you can have everybody, 10 people train at the same pace. They would all recover differently, right? And this is where coaching with the eyes is so important. So this is why I test people at 1 mile on the track after about 6 to 8 weeks, because that gives you an accurate indication of what their fitness is at that point. And then you can set the training paces accordingly based on what they run for that mile. It's the most accurate way that I've seen and personal experience also how to gauge their fitness. But yeah, VDOT, Daniels running calculator, Morgan. It is a very accurate calculator. Yeah, like I said, I use threshold and tempo calculations on that calculator. How many VO2 max sessions do you recommend in October? Well, this is when I personally start phasing in stuff. Like you can do threshold and VO2 max. Like I'll give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples. Instead of 8 times an 800, 2 sets of 4, right? The first set, you do 4 of them at threshold pace with a 1-minute recovery. Then you take a 5 to 6 minute rest, and then you do your second set at 5K pace with a 2-minute recovery. That could be your VO2 max component, threshold VO2 max. Or you could do 4 times 1,000, right? You do 8 times 1,000 if you're at a college level, or 3 times 1,000. You can do your 1,000-meter reps, your first set at threshold pace, take a 5 to 6 minute recovery, and then the second set at 5K pace with a 2-minute recovery, the same VO2 max component. So I was just talking about this too, Jorge. So taper, this is a good question. So depending on what year you're in, and this is one of the things that over the last 2 decades as a coach, I've modified this. And I've learned from a lot of top coaches too, and I've come in my own system. So freshman and sophomore, 9th and 10th grade, I have a day off every Sunday, right? Every week. Junior and senior, every other Sunday, they're off, okay? This is for high school. Now, when you have that, you're resting simultaneously every week as a 9th and 10th grader, every other week as an 11th and 12th grader. So what I do is average per day. What I mean by that, so let's just say they run 49 miles in 7 days, which is 7 miles per day. Then when they alternated with a 6-day week, I bring it down to 42. So they're still averaging the same 7 miles per day in 6 days, but they're getting that day off to let them train and recover at the same time. If you do that for an extended period of time, then you can lengthen the amount of time that you want to train your athletes so they can train without needing a drastic taper. Because what I'm seeing is a lot of folks will drop volume multiple weeks in a row and then increase intensity. And their athletes don't get enough opportunity to adapt to any of it. Whereas if you're doing similar blocks, your athletes have 3 to 4 weeks to adapt to any changing stimulus in training. So when I'm talking about taper, let's just say, Jorge, we go from 60 miles a week. Instead of going, 60, 50, 40, 30, I just drop it down to 40 and I stay there for the 3 weeks and let them adapt to the change in volume. And then you increase and then you make the modifications of the workouts. But at the end of the season is when the most intense workouts need to happen. And if you're doing stuff at a fast pace, they need to adapt to those fast paces. Okay. So that's what I mean by taper, Jorge. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. The same applies going up as it does going down. If you're going to increase volume, increase it and then stay there for a couple of weeks, let them get used to the new volume. Same thing goes down. If you're going to decrease, stay there for a couple of weeks, let them get used to that new volume. Okay, then you can modify the intensity. So you don't want to modify volume and intensity at the same time. That's a tricky one. That can throw the legs out of rack, out of cycle. If that makes sense. That's one of the things that I've been able to incorporate with athletes and have them running their best. Because November is championship season, right? If you do too much of something too soon, they're going to run their best races too early. If they're racing too much too soon, they're going to run their best races too early. So if you're cycling this stuff out accordingly is really important. Like I said too, in order to run your best races in cross country, you have to train accordingly because the only opportunity you get to qualify is at the end of the season. So you have to be at your best when it counts the most. Okay. In track, you can run a fast race, qualify for nationals the first week out, and then disappear for 10 weeks, underground, train, and come back later on and show up for states and nationals, whatever it might be. You can't do that in cross country. You have to be at your very best in November. And in order to do that, you've got to cycle out the training to maximize performance each month. Okay, and things to keep in mind. Over distance September, I modify things. The weather starts cooling off in October, right? And November is when the big time happens, the big races. That's when you need to be at your very best. So this is where, on a race week, I only give them one workout in a week. And a non-race week, 2 workouts. Okay. If they want to go fast again, I'll have them do a workout Tuesday and then a little bit of acceleration running on Thursday and then a race on Saturday. That's kind of how I've done it with a lot of success over the last 2 decades. So any other questions with that? Now, these are good questions, so I keep it coming. I appreciate you guys asking questions. I'm going to be putting out stuff this week if you haven't heard me say in the beginning, for like long sprinters and short sprinters, middle distance runners who don't run cross, who are just using it to get fit for track. Some workouts that those folks can do in October and November too, that make it easier for them to not only get fit during cross country, but also transition easier into track season. So those workouts are coming out this week. I'll have a video on each one. But yeah, mid-November, Morgan, is generally where championships, states, nationals, and so on. Yep. You have a key race on a Wednesday. How many days out should a VO2 max workout be done? You might do 3 times a mile. Well, are you racing again on Saturday? Morgan, if you don't race again on Saturday, then I'm going to do the workout Saturday. If your race is like, just to say tomorrow, are you racing again in 3 days after that? Oh, yeah, you can always go back and look. You can go back and look at all the live streams that I've done here, Jorge. You can go back. Everything is recorded on the channel, so it'll be available on the channel later on. All right. And again, if any of you guys have any questions, let me give you my email address: blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. You reach out to me directly. Okay. I work with a lot of coaches. I mentor a lot of high school coaches and college coaches, and we help them design their training in a manner that works for all their athletes. So if you have any questions about that, blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. Email me. I answer everybody. So Morgan, if you're not racing Saturday, then that's when I would do the workout. You'd have 2 days to recover after the race. But if you're going to race Wednesday, you're going to race it at full effort, because if you're racing at a full effort, it doesn't make sense to do mile repeats at VO2 max 3 days later. I would drop down to something at 3K pace. But that's just me. I mean, you can do that too. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do a VO2 max workout until Saturday if you weren't racing on Saturday. To answer your question. So, but believe me, I get a lot of people race twice a week here, and they wind up running their best races a month too soon. And it's a shame. Any other questions, gang? Yep. That's all right, Morgan. When you race, just put the calendar date if you don't mind of the race. That way I can look it up on the calendar. I can eyeball it out a little bit better for you. By the way, for the coaches that don't know this, I have training, like mentoring programs I do with coaches. Just if anybody's interested, we'll help design your training out over like a 12-week season, and you also have we also do like a weekly catch up, like a weekly Zoom or something like that, where we can touch base and make sure everything's going well, and so on and so forth. So if that's something you're curious about or interested in, email me. I'll get you the information on that. But I do this for probably about a half a dozen coaches. We can help them customize their training, and being in touch every week allows us to modify things on the fly if we need to. How many sleep should a high schooler on varsity? You want to, if you can average 8 a day, it's good. All right, if you can average 8 a day, it's good. Yeah, the average is good, Jorge. Like, and again, something to keep in mind as regards to sleep. That's one of the things that's going to help you recover from workouts. But you can have a terrible week's sleep, and just because you sleep really well the night before a race doesn't mean you made up for the terrible week's sleep. So it's important to get a consistent bout of sleeping. It really, really is. And that's something that's going to help keep your heart rate low, help keep you recovering from these hard sessions, right? Help keep you from getting sick. So, but on average, about 8 a day if you can do that, Jorge. The athletes can do that. Yeah. That's a good number. Any other questions? You have those dates, Morgan? Before I wrap it up, I want to see if you have those dates so we can definitely try to finalize it for you. That question, at least. October 29th. Okay, let me get the calendar here. So, okay, October 18th. October 18th is a Friday, and then the 29th is the following Wednesday. So if you wanted to do mile repeats, I would do it the 22nd, the week before the 29th. And then I would do some speed on the 25th. Something like that, Morgan. That's what I would do. If you're racing the 18th, which is a Friday, then 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, I would do the mile repeats. I would add a little bit of speed on the back end of that. And then 3 days after that, on the 25th Friday, I would do something, let's just say 300s at 3K pace or something like that. And 150s at mile pace after a run. And then you'd have Saturday and Sunday off, and Monday easy. Saturday, Sunday, Monday easy. And then Tuesday the 29th is the championships. So you can do that, Morgan. You can do 1600s at 5K pace. You could do 5 times a K or 6 times a K or 5 times 1200. 1200 is a distance that not a lot of people use, and that's actually a good distance. Either 5 times 1200 at 5K pace with a 2-minute recovery, or 4 times 1200 at 3K pace with a 3-minute recovery. Very, very good workouts to do. Very good workouts, Morgan. At that point, Morgan, you're in championship season. You won't need to do um, that tempo. I mean, you can if you want, but you can even do that Friday, the 25th. You can do like a 2-mile tempo, right? And then take a 6-minute recovery, and then just do like 5 times a 300 on the back end, or 6 times a 300. Progress from 3K pace down to mile pace. Now we have a mini tempo, and then you have a little bit of accelerated running after the workout on Tuesday, and then you have that before the race. You could do that too, Morgan. 5 times 1K is cool. 5 times 1K. Take a 2-minute recovery. Now your 5K pace. That's what I would do. But that workout's totally fine. But that's what I would do, Morgan. I mean, you can add the tempo. I would just do an abbreviated tempo, and since you want to be your sharpest at the end there, I would just abbreviate the tempo and add something to sharpen up at the end. You also had 2 to 3 after league champion. When is that, Morgan? When are those? What are the calendar dates on those? So 2 to 3 after league championships. It's additional races, so you would have maybe 5 races, 4 to 5 races from now to the 29th. Is that accurate, Morgan? If anybody else here has any questions, put them in the comments. Load them up. Load up the questions. I'm here to answer questions. The 9th and the 16th. Oh, so it's afterward. Okay. 9th and the 16th of November. So Morgan, let's see. Let me pull this calendar back up. So let's say after the 29th, then you have you have a week and a half, essentially 11 days until the next race. So the 29th, you race Tuesday. Then I would do a workout that Saturday or Friday, November 1st or 2nd, and then do a light threshold workout on the 5th with some speed. And then you race the 9th, and then another light threshold workout with some speed on the 12th, and then you race the 16th, and then you're good. That's kind of that's what I would do. Does that make sense? That's how you can kind of easily fit in the workouts if you wanted to do that. Kind of an easy way to do it, and still get tempo threshold and what you need to do. And again, at that you're at the latter part of the season, so that's when you want to maximize your workouts and put yourself in a position to run your best. Mm-hmm. And also, the threshold work puts you in a position to make the hardest effort of the week the race, the fastest effort of the week the race. And at that point, you want to have enough training in your belt to be able to capitalize on that. You want to peak on the 16th, so you want to run your absolute best on the 16th. So it gives you, like, right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 6 weeks. So you can lay out the training accordingly. Send me an email, Morgan, if you want to break down the last 6 weeks of training. We can do that together if you like. If you think it'll help. 6 weeks will give you you can get a good amount of training in 6 weeks. But You can definitely take advantage of the block and get in a good amount of training before these races. Email me. Yeah, sounds good, Morgan. So I will wrap this up. I'm going to go over to my TikTok now and put out some running content too. For those that don't know, if you have a TikTok, access the coaches, my TikTok account. We have 10,000 followers there. I'm going to try to get to 5,000 here by the end of the year. So if you have any runners or coaches who think might benefit from this channel, please send them over. I appreciate their support, and hopefully they'll subscribe. And if you have any more questions, send me an email, blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. Have a great day and a great season. I'll talk to you next time. See you later, Morgan.